Assalamu alaikum. Yesterday, the Indian military launched an offensive in Pakistan, and it is being told to the world that this is in retaliation to the Pulwama incident, when in fact the reality of the matter is Modi government is treating the whole situation as an election strategy. They want to create a warlike situation to hide their own sins, their own policies that have been against the Indian people to win the next general elections. And I'm going to give you some proofs, which all of this information is available in Hindustan Times, The Hindu, and the government departments whose names I'm going to mention. The government departments of India, their own statistics, I'm going to quote in the following video. The first failure of the Modi government was demonetization. It is a classic business case being taught in business schools and the schools of economics all over the world. It is the worst thing that any government can do, and they have done that. According to Mr. Arun Kumar from the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, not even one objective of the entire campaign was met. Around the black money is still there, the money laundering is still happening, the fake banknotes are still there, but Mr. Modi does not want you to think about that. Number two is the alarming rate of farmers committing suicide in India. Almost 45 to 60 farmers are committing suicide every single day in India, and that is not my statistic, that is from the Hindustan Times. And what that means is, why is that happening? Number one, it's because of the law called minimum support price plus 50%. What that says is that the government sets a value for the product and says, okay, this is the minimum support price that we will pay for every product that a farmer brings to sell to the government, and we will pay 50% more. So the farmers think, okay, I'm gonna get 50% extra, which is good, but when they go to sell, the minimum support price is so much lower that even with adding 50%, it does not add up to the real market price. So for example, 800 rupees per kilo of mango, or per certain unit of mango, was being sold in India until 2017, but in 2018 the same quantity is being sold at 200 rupees per unit. What that means is you just get 25% of what you were getting last year, and that is why the farmers are committing suicide. It is happening all across India. The next thing is about the extensive import. India has been exporting lentils and all those seeds and all those grains from all over the world, and why, when you import a lot of things, you increase the supply, and because the demand remains the same, the farmers get a lower price for what they're selling, and that is why they're committing suicide. The third is the land grab law. The Indian government has passed a law according to which the government can come and say, okay, this land is ours from now, you cannot keep it anymore, and we will decide who this goes to. And that is why the alarming rate of Indian farmers, which was already high by 2013, is still going higher during the Modi government. The third one is the mob attacks on the Muslims and Dalits. There have been 27 killings in the last year of Dalits and Muslims. And of course, Mr. Modi does not give a shit about Muslims. Let's talk about the Dalits, who are Hindus themselves, same as Mr. Modi. And what has happened in the past year is not just Muslims, but Dalits have been lynched. They have been killed on the streets of India. Not just the civilians, but also their army men. The same army Mr. Modi is using for his election campaign. And the army men have complained, but nothing has happened. Why? Because they're Dalits. Mr. Modi does not care about any other caste except his own. It's not even about religion anymore. The fourth thing is about the foreign policy blunder. Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and Nepal. These three countries were traditionally always compliant with the Indian policies. These are the countries who are geographically attached to India. So that is why they would always obey what India said. But in the past few years, since Mr. Modi came to power, these three countries have started listening to China and started taking investments of infrastructure from them. So now China has a place in all these three countries. What that means is Mr. Modi has also failed on a foreign policy front, not even in different parts of the world, but right in his own backyard. The fifth one is the Aadhaar card. Aadhaar card was an initiative of Mr. Modi, and he said that, okay, I'm going to give everybody a card, and you buy bread or you get a haircut, I will know what you've done. And so the Supreme Court had to step in and say, are you stupid? This is not going to happen. You're violating every single privacy law of India. And so that was a failure again. The sixth one is the jobs. And this is funny because the Indian economy is actually going down, right? The statistics show that there is a rampant increase in unemployment in India. But what the government has done is change the calculation of GDP in the past few years. And I haven't heard any other government that has done this before, but the Modi government has actually changed the formula for calculation of GDP. And that is why they're showing that our employment rate is high, we are growing economy, the Shining India initiative. Well, the point of this video is to tell the Indian people, please wake up. Mr. Modi is taking advantage of your emotions. Pakistan is not your enemy. Pakistanis are not your enemy. We want peace. Our Prime Minister has said that we want peace. You know our Prime Minister. You know him from a few decades already. You know him for 4 or 5 decades. You know that he does not want war with India. India should not impose a war on Pakistani people. We are nuclear powers. We have to think normally. We have to think as normal human beings. The whole disaster of war, if it happens, is going to hurt the both countries. Let the Indian people wake up. Let the Indian civil society wake up and talk to Mr. Modi and say, what have you done in the past 5 years that now you're launching a military offensive against Pakistan? Let's stop the war hysteria. Let's talk about the data. Please ask these 6 points from Mr. Narendra Modi and then decide who you're going to vote.